Everyone, welcome back. So, quick note to this, I'm going to be trying a new video format where I go unscripted and just have some notes, like a guideline, but I just make my raw thoughts, especially for, stuff like this, where it's my opinion more so than anything else. I did this for my Arcane video a while back, and that was really fun, and also it extended the length, like, a lot. So, hopefully you guys enjoy it, let me know what you think, but anyway, let's get right into it. So, basically, just off the bat, Natlan is good. All right, it's not the next Inazuma, all right? It's not as bad as people on social media are making it out to be, but it wasn't everything it could have been, if that makes sense. It was amazing up until Act 4. Act 1 through 4 were, in my opinion, better than Fontaine. Not better than Fontaine Act 5, but if we're comparing, like, the acts, Act 1 of Fontaine to Act 1 of Natlan and vice, like, going forward, Natlan was better for me. And then in Act 5, that was completely turned on its head. I'm gonna go act by act and kind of just give my thoughts. I've been trying to stay off social media, so this should be a pretty unfiltered take, just my raw thoughts. Also, quick note, we can disagree in this one, like we always disagree, but if one of you have other thoughts, definitely write them down, because this is purely me, like, giving my opinion. So, if you have anything to add or anything you want to, like, talk about, comment. But yeah, let's get into it. So let's start with Act 1. So to start, Act 1 was my favorite intro to a region so far. Like, better than Sumeru, I was awesome, but it felt really dragged on and kind of long, and there's a bunch of stuff to pack in. And for Fontaine, the trial was very interesting, but it just felt a bit too long and trapped for my taste. Honestly, it's a very opinionated thing. I could go for Fontaine or Natlan as being awesome. But the aesthetics of Natlan was just immaculate. Like, going into the Children of Echoes, I was trying to focus on what Kachina was saying, but mainly I couldn't because I was just banging my head to that awesome song. I still listen to it all the time. Children of Echoes theme on top. I love Natlan's design and aesthetics. Like, when you're going out to the statue with Kachina and looking out over the world, it feels vast. It's kind of like the Sumeru feeling again, which I loved. I feel like also kind of on the topic of meeting Kachina, meeting with her right at the entrance and she's talking to those guys felt a little bit too convenient for me, but honestly, it works because, it leads into a much better plot. So I can forgive this because it works. My only big problem with the main intro section is how when we get to the statue, the traveler just kind of whips out their elemental powers that they suddenly have control of all 5 so far out of seemingly nowhere. I get that they have had that ability for a while, but it wasn't really shoved in our faces until right now. I'm like, oh yeah, no, they actually can do that. They don't need to go to the statues like we, the player, have to, which it's like, okay, sure. Anyway, after the stadium, so I love Kanichi and Mualani, and of course, Ahau. Hot take, I love him. But the star of the show is indubitably Kachina. I won't get into it here because I made a video about her, but she's so well written. I love her. Like, child characters, they can be annoying sometimes, like when they're done poorly, and she feels like she should be. Like I said this in my video, Kachina absolutely should be super annoying. She's a crybaby child who's also fighting people twice her size and winning. But she doesn't feel annoying, she doesn't feel unrealistic, and I go way more into this in my other video. I'll link that in the description, go check that out if you are interested. In Kachina's thingy also, when she won, I was sobbing like a proud mother because we see her on this journey and we help her and we learn about her. We grow to care for her because she is our daughter, okay? And I will kill anyone who hurts her. I love her. And then also at the very end of Act 1, I kind of forgot about the Mualani section, but that was also really sweet. We got to see more of the tribes. And the big part of that I really liked is we get to confront the Abyss. And it's not a lot, but we get just a little taste, a glimpse of what the future of Natlan's war could look like, what Natlan's Archon Quest could look like. And it's scary. It's dark. The sky is dark, the pylons, everything. People we love die. Still, it was small. And I think the biggest part, especially with people this strength brings, is it shows, they're relaxed, sure, but everyone can be attacked. Even these very chill people can be attacked. And it makes it, in Act 4, so much more tragic. Oh my god, dude. So Act 2. Act 2 is where things really start to kick into gear, because when we go to retrieve Kachina from the stadium, she doesn't come home, which I think we could all kind of see coming, just kind of, plot-wise. But the main praise I want to give to this act is in the setup for the Abyss. This kind of expands on what happened back with Mualani, where we see the Abyss come into her tribe, but now we're going into their territory. And it's so well done. I love the atmosphere in the Night Kingdom. it's just the souls everywhere and you need the protection, and like Kachina's there. And like like you're like while our taste is our glimpse of this place is horrible, you think about her and what she's going through having to basically live there. Because what? Poor girl. I don't know. When we escaped the Night Kingdom, I feel like Moika's power came a little bit out of nowhere, but at the same time, we needed that benchmark for like how strong is she, so I don't really care too much. And also, she looked fucking awesome. Like, queen, you badass. Everything in this act was really good, like 9 out of 10. The reason I take the 1 out is because the Moika versus Capitano fight. I have a whole video about this specifically if you're interested in me going very in depth and more organized into this thought. It just kind of came out of nowhere for me. When it came, I was thinking it would be at the end of the act, and then it was just at the beginning. I was like, whoa, okay, here, sure, all right. And it felt just flashy. It was just kind of like shonen people fan service, which I wasn't really a fan of. But besides that little tidbit or whatever, and even kind of including that tidbit, Act 2 just sets up a lot of very interesting and important plot threads that we circle back to later on, which, I mean, honestly, we need setup. It's the early acts. I'm okay with setup because then we get into the real meat. So Act 3. This was filler. I don't think anyone is denying that, but I think it was a pretty good filler. Jelona's role is pretty small, I'll say, but it was set up to be impactful. Key is set up. I'll get to that later. That's a bit of a problem for Act 5. I think a big criticism that I didn't actually expect people to have was Lolly. I know I made a video on her because I liked her as a character. I really did. I think I can get why people find her annoying, but there's just, I don't know, in my opinion, personally, there's a lot more to her than people give her credit for, because people see the I don't know, the old lady in the tiny and young character body, and everyone gets annoyed, which, fair, okay, I watch anime too, I get annoyed by it as well, but she feels it well, and she has details to her that make her feel like a mix of, like, the old lady that she actually is, and, like, the young person that in the body that she's in, which I do like. I think people don't give her writing enough credit for kind of carrying out what it's supposed to be, and they just look at the weird trope and like, ugh, gross, another one of you. And then also her son, grandson, I guess, Auroran. I love Auroran. When I first met him, he was just like, silly boy. He's just cute, okay? Like, I don't know why. I enjoy him. He's kind of weird. He's just kind of a silly little guy who's kind of also emo. Like, I've seen the gacha edits. Like, the comparisons of him to, like, the old gacha life OCs. I'm like, oh god, no, I kind of see it. But besides that, he's silly. And he's got his nice personality. He's got, like, soft to him. And also, he's got well writing. Like, sure, he's the angsty gacha guy character, dark, broody guy, but he's got, like, the softness to him and the past and, like, the family around him to kind of make it work. And, of course, he's got ties to Capitano, which just makes him more interesting to us. Oh, speaking of Capitano, the Capitano increases. And we love Capitano in this household. We love Capitano. Rip Capitano. We just get to see the dynamics. And it sets up a bit for what I consider to be Genshin's genuine peak of storytelling. So, just to set the record straight, Act 4, Natlan peaked. Holy shit, it's so good. I love Act 4. Act 4 was kind of the pinnacle of my enjoyment of this game's story. Better than Fontaine Act 5 for me personally. I can understand, like, picking one over the other because it's just kind of a personal taste thing. But for me personally, I liked Natlan Act 4 more than I did Fontaine Act 5 because I guess I like the running around and fighting. So we'll start at the beginning, before the war. The Lord of the Night, that whole stuff where we go and we see them and, like, Moika and Capitano team up, and sue me, you can sue me if you want, I'm a Capri Sun shipper, and I will die on that hill. I don't care that he's dead. They are so cute, and I love them. I don't know. The fist bump, I don't know. They have such a fun dynamic. They're just two warriors who are hardened by life, but they also have, like, that softness to them, like that willingness to protect, and also the moral dilemma. I've seen a lot of people talk about that, and that really interested me as well. They both have good intentions, right? Capitano wants to save the nation, Moika wants to save the nation, but both have incredibly different ways of going about that goal with different consequences or risks according with them. Like, Capitano's sacrifices a lot more for a lot more stability, but Moika's is more risky, but will save a lot more in the end, like, form of their history. You can decide for yourself, the player, and honestly, myself, I'm not really sure. And that's what was interesting, because Genshin hasn't really played too much with this kind of moral ambiguity, moral dilemma, both could be good, both could be bad kind of route. And that's fun. I want them to do that more, especially in Snezhnaya with the Fatui, because they're all morally ambiguous with each other. And then also we got a bunch of lore drops, of course, the Lord of the Night, which, like, the lore people were feasting that day. That was a glorious day for the lore enjoyers. So, the meat of Act 4 is the war, obviously. That's the most memorable part, and again, where I think Natlan peaked. It shows the true darkness of the war. And again, I think I've said this to the others. Go check out my video on Natlan vs. Inazuma War if you really want full, in-depth, organized thoughts on this. But to kind of summarize what I say in that video, it shows depth, or not depth, weight, I guess. Because in Inazuma, we're hearing so much about all this terrible war and how it's affecting everyone so terribly, and everything's awful. And then, I mean, like, we're just kind of out having dates with Ayaka and Yoimiya and just kind of chilling around the city. But the guards are there, but you don't see them unless you're, like, really looking for them. Whereas in Natlan, there were bodies on the ground, both of Saurian and human. The Saurian ones, oh my god, I cried. The babies, okay. And then with Koichi. So she's an NPC connected to, like, a playable character, so we already got to know her before. I knew she was gonna die, I'll be so for real. Like, you're too nice, you're too well designed, and you're an NPC, so you're not gonna be playable, so you're gonna die. And then she did, but I saw it coming, but I still cried. Maybe because I have a sister as well, but dude, man. Koichi, I love her. I love her more than Chaska, don't kill me. I do have a bit of a critique for Koichi's death, in that kind of, it felt a little bit plot devicey to me, like Deus Ex Machina, now we finally have the final hero, but it also doesn't really matter because Koichi's death was executed well, and the final, like, 6 heroes assembling was also executed pretty well, so, like, it's forgiven. And speaking of the 6 heroes, that cutscene was awesome. Like, they're all standing in the circle with their ancient names, the power flowing through them, and then they got, like, the 6 heroes all standing together with the sun in the background, like, ready to go fight the abyss. Whoo! Chills, it was so cool. It was just a height. And that's a problem I'll talk about with Act 5. But the weight was there. We spent the past hour and a half watching this war-torn land just fall apart. And finally, after so much work, we can save it. And that triumphant music in the background, the spirit waves, everything, the lighting, the environment after we get the 6 years together is immaculate. It feels like victory. And when we were over, when Morika punches the sky, that was awesome. It feels like victory, and I actually cared. On my video with Natlan vs. Inazuma, I got people talking about, wow, you really want me to care more about this dark abyss cloud than the Raiden Shogun? Is Raiden Shogun really less scary than the dark cloud? And, like, I'll give you that. Raiden Shogun is technically more of a scary villain, the character presentation. But the difference between the Shogun, or the Inazuma War, and the Natlan War isn't the villain who they're facing, but the people who are fighting in it. Because the Shogun isn't the focus of the Inazuma War. They're trying to focus on the people, but the people are Tepe. And then in Natlan, we're looking at the people that we know. We're seeing Kachina and Jilonen, and I don't think we see Mualani, but we see a bunch of NPCs. We see the Saurians. With Natlan, we see who suffers. With Inazuma, we're told who suffers, and they think we're going to care. Which, no, but okay. But honestly, I wasn't sure how they would add something else to this. I was like, honestly, if they ended it here, I would be fine. This is a great conclusion to Natlan. And honestly, I kind of wish that they had. So, Act 5. This, for me personally, and I think for a lot of people that I know, is where everything kind of fell apart. They didn't stick the landing. The start feels a bit like a weird tone thing. Like, we had a victory feast already at the end of Act 4, and now we're having another feast. Not a victory feast, obviously, but another feast at the beginning of Act 5. I think it had a purpose of, like, trying to get us to know Moika a bit more and, like, show us more of her, which I appreciate. But they didn't really stick with that, or they spent it on, like, on the dreams. And then after that, we go and we're talking, like, Jilonen, she's got the ancient name ready. And then we go see Lali to the spirits, and then we spend 20 minutes, like, talking about what we should be doing and then not actually do it, which, that's kind of the biggest flaw I've had with Genshin in the past few times I've been doing the Archon quests, and they finally kind of was easing away from that in Natlan, and now they're going back to it, which was just kind of like, nah, not really. Wasn't into it. Anyway, like, kind of moving on a little bit. I wasn't really sold on the Moika and Traveler going in alone thing. I thought that they would end up having people come in with them with something going on, because the whole theme of Natlan was no one fights alone, and yet she and the Traveler go in alone together. I really do feel like I'm missing something with this, so if you have an idea of if I'm missing something here, do comment it, because I am kind of looking for an explanation on this. Was it really poor writing, or is it something I'm missing? I don't know. But the big problem with Act 5, for the whole going into the Night Kingdom and battling, that I really want to focus on with this, is that we have a ton of threads that really should be great. Like, we have the final battle, obviously, with Moika and the other heroes talking to us, Kachina and the others, like, chanting to the Sacred Flame, Paimon being alone, Hina and Moika, that was a big one, Koichi assisting us, the old spirits. There's a ton of stuff that should feel triumphant and strong and amazing and wrap Natlan all together. But it just doesn't. And I'll get into why I think that is a bit later. But also, with the fight, my big problem with the fight is that it was a bit too easy. And like, oh my god, I had a skill issue, though. It was hard for me. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, the difficulty of the fight as in the game. I'm talking that it took too short. Like, I was fighting that boss for maybe 3 minutes, probably less. So it was really straightforward to fight the boss, I guess. Like, we're trying to learn the character new mechanics, obviously, but it was just the 5 minutes of fighting, and then that was it. Like, they're trying to show the Traveler exhausting from fighting without actually, like, exhausting the player. And the player doesn't need to be exhausted. To be clear, I wouldn't, like, want to be exhausted while playing. They should have lengthened it, if that makes sense. Not the fight itself, but maybe do something kind of like what they did for Farina, where you go back in time, kind of, we see the past, but it's not like Moika, because that would be a bit too repetitive, but maybe just the people of Natlan's past, rebuilding their fate, maybe like the old 6 heroes. I think, honestly, if we had just kind of gone through time and see how Natlan has built itself up to this moment, maybe we could even die, honestly. I was thinking that we would die, and because we have the ancient name now, so I was thinking either the Traveler or Moika would die in the final battle, and then the person who didn't die would use their sacrifice to power themselves up to, like, make it through and seize victory. Which, it didn't happen, and that kind of made the ancient name feel a little bit pointless to me, if that makes sense, because we spent all of Act 3 going forward, and I would have been fine if we'd ended up using that filler time, which was spent, like, forging the ancient name and everything for that. Then we just don't, like, use the name that we were given. I don't know. It really annoyed me. I don't know. When they finally won, I thought it was maybe partially because, I think, no, almost definitely it was because the English dub for the Traveler wasn't voiced. That definitely took a lot of it out of it for me. But also, like what I said, it was so easy, and it's this big thing. And while I was ecstatic, elated even, when we won in Act 4. And then for this, I just kind of felt nothing. I didn't really care. And which is a terrible sign for a story. And my big, like, kind of praise-ish for this act is Capitano. Capitano did kind of save this from being a complete, like, flop of an act. His sacrifice was honestly sick. Lich King, I love that. I was crying. I wasn't crying because he died, though. That was my big problem. I was crying because I didn't get to main him anymore. Like, I was planning to second main him after Chiori. Rip the king, I loved him, and then he just died. That's why I wasn't crying because I, like, missed him like we did for... I mean, we cried for Fossil because New Valette was sad, because we'd grown to invest ourselves in New Valette. And then for this, we just don't have anything to attach it to, which it just feels weird. I don't like it. Which, I don't know, we've gotten to know Capitano a little bit, but he's still a very mysterious figure who I thought he would help us here, and then we get to know him a bit more in, like, an interlude, and then he become playable, because, you know, she's pretty hot. Yeah, Capitano, man. That's what Signor mates feel like. So, overall, Natlan. I think the biggest problem with Natlan it's kind of obvious, is that Natlan had a simple plot, and to be clear, that's okay. There's a lot of stories with very simple plots that end up being fantastic stories. But if you want to have a simple plot, you need to have complex characters to make that more interesting. And Natlan has those. It does, like, really, with Kachina and Lali, and, like, kind of not really to, like, the extent of, like, their depth, but also in Act 4 we have all those, like, those people that we kind of grown to, like, admire through the battle, dying. And those acts work really well because they focus on the characters. Like, we can forgive the lackluster plot because the characters inside the plot are really well done. But the problem with Natlan is we don't get enough time to focus on the characters. Like, but when we do get to focus on the characters, the story feels very impactful despite the basic plot because we care. But if we don't get time to invest in the characters, we don't care. Because the problem with it is we have this big final battle emotional hook, but the hook for that is supposed to be Moeka. And the problem with that is we barely have spent any time with her yet. If we'd done kind of like what Farina or whatever, and we got to go back in time and something, whatever, see more of her. Like, we didn't know Farina very much until Act 5, and so we all cared about her because we got to like learn about her. If they did something like that with like Moeka, it could have been awesome, and I might have cried, but it didn't really have the impact that other characters did, like Navia or Farina or Nahida. We were just kind of expected to care with no reason to. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching to the end. I know this was a bit different from my normal content, but I hope you enjoyed if you made it here. Let me know for sure if you want me to stick with this kind of video or just go back to my normal kind. I'm going to still do scripted videos, obviously, because they're more easy to like lay out and follow for a lot of people. But sometimes occasionally sprinkling these opinion-based, more loose videos might be kind of fun. Also, they tend to be longer because I rant like crazy. And make sure to subscribe for more Genshin content from me. Yeah, I guess have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in the next one.